for corruption.
The officer was jailed for a year for accepting bribes from a restaurant in return for letting it sell alcohol without a license. ATV's Yeung reports.
Titus Wong was taken to the High Court this morning in a prison van to find out if he would be released on bail. The disgraced former police superintendent was sentenced to 12 months behind bars by the Eastern Magistrates Court earlier this month for accepting bribes from a restaurant in Causeway Bay. In return for his silence, the former Wan Chai divisional commander turned a blind eye to the restaurant serving alcohol without a liquor license. The 51-year-old had received more than $5,000 worth of meals, gifts and discounts and was found guilty on one count of misconduct in public office last month. Today, Wong's lawyer argued that the sentence was too harsh and there was no clear conflict of interest in the case, so he should be granted bail pending an appeal. But Deputy High Court Judge Joseph Yao said the Eastern Court Magistrate has not yet submitted the full judgment and the transcription of the trial is not complete. Yao denied him bail, declaring there is not enough information for the defendant to make an appeal and he's unlikely to succeed. Yeung, ATV News.
Chinese authorities have arrested 2 Russian men accused of trying to smuggle bear paws into the mainland.
Customs officers found more than 200 bear paws hidden in the tires of a van that was trying to cross the border into China. Just a reminder that some viewers may find the footage disturbing.
Here's a sight that would upset anyone who cares about animal rights. 213 bear paws seized by Chinese authorities near the Russian border. It happened last month, but the case was only reported today by state media. Customs officers became suspicious when 3 vehicles from Russia passed through the border city of Manjoli in Mongolia. They carried out a check to find something wrong with the tires of one old and battered minivan. We found the driver very nervous and paying great attention to our knocks on the vehicle. He frequently looked at his watch, said Customs Officer Yang Shu. An X-ray examination of the vehicle led to a startling discovery. Dozens of bear paws had been stuffed into the tires. The haul was estimated to be worth 2.8 million yuan. 2 Russian men were arrested on smuggling charges. Customs officers have found animal parts being smuggled in this manner into China before, but this is the first time they've found bear paws. They are believed to have medicinal properties and are also considered a delicacy in some parts of the mainland. The trade in bear parts is illegal, but it continues to thrive because of demand. Yeung, ATV News.
World leaders at the Group of 8 summit in Northern Ireland are trying to work out a joint statement to end the Syrian civil war.
The US and Russia have agreed to push for peace talks, even though they support opposing sides. Arthur Okeola reports.
The Syrian conflict topped the agenda as US President Barack Obama met with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin at the G8 summit in Northern Ireland. Although both leaders agree the violence should stop and want all warring sides to return to peace talks, the atmosphere at their meeting was tense, and differences between the two were soon brought to the forefront.
We do have differing perspectives on the problem, but we share an interest in reducing the violence, securing chemical weapons, ensuring that they're neither used nor are they subject to proliferation.
Putin said despite the differences in opinion, he was hoping that all parties would join negotiations in Geneva. No official date has been set for the Geneva conference, seen as a follow-up to last year's international meeting that drafted a roadmap for peace. Putin is at odds with the other leaders as a staunch supporter of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in the civil war that has claimed more than 93,000 lives. Russia is the Syrian government's most powerful ally, arming the regime's soldiers and considering the delivery of a sophisticated missile system. Washington has pledged more military support to the rebels, including automatic weapons and rocket-propelled grenades. Heightening tensions are claims by a U.S. intelligence assessment, proof that Assad's forces had used chemical weapons against rebels. Russia has dismissed the claims, saying they are not supported by the necessary convincing facts. But the European Council is calling for an immediate investigation by the United Nations.
The US assessment on the use of chemical weapons makes even more urgent our repeated calls for an agreement to immediately deploy a UN verification mission to investigate these allegations on the ground.
Last month, the European Union lifted its arms embargo on Syria, allowing France and Britain to arm the rebels. However, leaders in Northern Ireland questioned whether introducing more weapons into the conflict was the answer.
My own personal view is that putting more armed people, putting more weapons into a country can exacerbate the situation. Whilst at the same time we have to recognise that something like well over 90,000 people have lost their lives in Syria. I come at this from the perspective of trying to encourage peace processes.
No conflict is going to be settled in a permanent way through having people armed and fighting each other. Conflict will only ever be resolved through dialogue and through negotiations, and that has to be the way forward.
The focus is also on trade and economic issues at the summit. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has been explaining a set of measures approved last Friday to boost economic growth in his country. After meeting the Japanese leader, German Chancellor Angela Merkel said Abe had made it clear Japan would undertake important structural reforms. As the summit entered its second and final day, leaders continue to encourage Japan to press ahead with reforms to tackle its budget deficit. Representing more than half the world's $71.7 trillion global economy, the leaders attending have also been discussing a banking union within the Eurozone. British Prime Minister David Cameron, who is hosting the summit, put the focus today on tax evasion, boosting trade and increasing transparency. But Syria was still the dominant issue, with talks in working out a joint statement despite differences on how to end the civil war. Arthur Rukula, ATV News.
Time now for sports with Raymond Yeung.
So, David Beckham is back in China, Raymond?
Well, that's right, Bao. He's in Beijing for football and charity. But first, in other football news, French footballers Franck Ribéry and Karim Benzema have gone on trial in Paris for allegedly paying a teenage girl for sex.
After a 2-year investigation, French prosecutors have charged Franck Ribéry and Karim Benzema for soliciting a minor. According to previous media reports, the two French international players had each paid a teenage call girl for sex in 2008 and 2009. It's been claimed that Zahir Dahar, now 21 years old, told the pair that she was 18 at the time, the minimum age for legal prostitution in France. State prosecutors had initially asked for the case be dropped, but the judiciary pressed on with a trial. Ribéry, a Bayern Munich winger and Bundesliga Footballer of the Year, has apparently acknowledged the encounter, but denied any wrongdoing, claiming he was misled. But Benzema, who plays for Spanish giants Real Madrid, has rejected the allegations outright. Neither of them is expected to attend the high-profile trial, which starts today. Both face 3 years behind bars, plus a $60,000 fine if convicted. With the Confederations Cup in Brazil marked by rioting and mass rallies in various host cities, football's world governing body FIFA was quick to distance itself from the protesters. FIFA said it remained confident that local authorities will contain the situation, despite signs that the protests are gaining momentum by the day.
Because we are obviously again in touch always with the host country, local authorities on any matters that could have any impact on the event, but really it's more a question for the local authorities. They are responsible for all those security matters outside of the stadium, and we continue to have full confidence and trust in the local authorities.
At a Rio de Janeiro event, FIFA President Sepp Blatter also sidestepped questions over construction delays and cost overruns by giving a thumbs up to the newly renovated Maracana Stadium.
It's not the new Maracana, it's still the Maracana. It's full of emotion. It's like a church. It's like a cathedral. You build something, but it's still the same spirit. It is something exceptional, this Maracana. The spectators, they answered it.
But locals who are furious about the vast sums of public money spent on the event are expected to take to the streets again to protest. Star footballer David Beckham is back in China again on a tour to promote Chinese soccer. The 38-year-old, who recently retired from Paris Saint-Germain, attended a children's charity foundation event in Beijing, where he donated a sports car and jerseys of his own. The former England captain was named China's global football ambassador in March. Chinese Super League officials are hoping his popularity can revive the game's image, tarnished by match-fixing scandals in recent years.
A look at the weather before we go. It was hot today with sunny spells and isolated showers. Temperatures ranged from 26.8 to 32.5 degrees, while the relative humidity was between 73 and 96%. Winds were moderate coming in from the southeast. Let's check the ultraviolet reading. The maximum recorded for the day was 11. Tomorrow's UV index will be about 12. Let's take a look at the weather in the region. A little earlier, Tropical Storm Lipi was centered about 890 kilometers south of Okinawa. It's forecast to move north-northwest in the seas east of Taiwan. And moving on to the satellite images. Showers now affecting Guangdong are easing off, giving way to fine weather brought about by an anticyclone over southern China. Here's what we can expect over the next few days. Fine and very hot tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 28 and 33 degrees. More of the same on Thursday with a top temperature of 33 degrees again, becoming cloudy with rain over the weekend. Now for tomorrow's air pollution levels. General stations will be low to medium at 10 to 40, and roadside pollution levels will be medium to high at 45 to 80. And finally, here's the weather around the world.
And that's the main news for Tuesday night. I'll be back with an update in an hour. I'm Edna.
I'm Raymond Yeung.
And I'm Belinda Lloyd. Thanks for watching ATV. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
跟住落嚟係亞視普通話新聞。亞洲元帥一統美男天下。ATV 2013亞洲先生競選現已接受網上報名。幕前發亮閃耀舞台，藝人台下生活，你又知幾多呢？
其實我覺得我係算好幸運。
到而家呢個階段咯，自己會希望將真嗰面多啲會擺出嚟。
緊貼華麗背後就要黐實。星動亞洲，星期1至5晚12:05亞洲台。科學家努力尋找、探究古老傳說，分析神秘圖案，史前石洞留下奇怪線索，前人智慧深不可測。日光照射有奇妙啟示，夜觀天象竟然破解星空奧秘。環球大百科史前星空大師。星期5晚8點半，亞洲台。潮州人刻苦耐勞又團結，有生意頭腦，創造不少商業傳奇。一班傑出潮州商人分享佢哋嘅智慧同成功之道。香港潮州商會呈獻傑出潮商系列，6月24號起，星期1、2、4、5晚上9點半，亞洲台。
越洋直擊1年1度英國皇家雅士谷賽期首天賽事皇席錦標賽馬日，6場賽事包括3場國際1級賽女王安妮錦標、聖詹姆士皇宮錦標及世界短途挑戰賽第5站皇席錦標，今晚於亞洲電視直播。
巨資製作，輾轉8地，歷時半年，打造電影級視覺享受。劇情峰迴路轉，情節